Welcome to Dark Days Radio presents Darkhammer, a Worlds of Worlds of Warhammer. What I was going to say instead was something not Warhammer. Worlds of Warhammer a podcast. I've been doing other things recently that have war in there. Anyway, I'm one of the regular hosts, Chris, and I'm joined by as a guest host from Realm of Fire. I am joined by Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hello there, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. I know the weather. Well, I mean, we're both based in the UK, so the weather's
Yeah.
been boiling and then
Yeah,
pissing it down. So
pissing
that's
it down.
life as normal for a British summer.
Yeah, it rained so much the other day. I sat on my flat balcony and just read Neuromancer in the most Blade Runner way I could.
Nice.
The rain falling off the balconies, reading Neuromancer. So that's how I celebrated the break in the weather.
Cool. Yeah. So we haven't had a Darkhammer episode for a while, and there's been lots to read because Age of Sigmar Third Edition has been
Yes.
released, and there's even more stuff coming out.
Yeah.
That will be the topic of this episode, which is the rise of the beast, because we are into a new age of Age of Sigmar to do with the centering around beasts, the realm of Gur, and monsters and everything.
Yeah.
So with that though, we're going to do a little bit of a game update then. So what have you been playing?
I've been playing, curiously enough, Age of Sigmar 3.0 since
Of
its
course.
release about a month ago now, I would say in June it released. I've had a game a week so far, which is good going. Basically learning, putting down less than 1,000 points and just giving it a go because the rules have changed. Not massively, but enough that it throws you off your game a little bit. We've been exploring it. Me and my friends have been testing it a little bit. The first game we played, my opponent just went, right, I'm just going to field wizards and endless spells, basically, just to really play around. We both like to push mechanics and
Yeah.
games to the limit a little bit. So let's see if it stood up to that, and it did. Every game I've had has been good fun. Started Path to Glory, but I'm not going to continue with it, and I'm not going to go into too much depth here. You can listen to the latest Realm of Fire for that. But at the moment, I'm not sure the Path to Glory system is set yet. I think it needs a bit of work. So that's been my takeaway. But AOS 3, big hit. The focus on the heroes, the focus on the command points and the monsters, it gives it a very heroic feeling. And it's heroic fantasy anyway, we all know that. But it's very, you feel like you are playing with a couple of heroes and their retinue. You're almost like Elric, Corum style, it's very, you're playing with these people and these people shine on the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting you say that because there are these new kind of command abilities in there. There's also obviously there's new abilities
Heroic
so like
abilities,
your
yeah.
for monsters.
Yeah.
Commanders can use their force of will
Yeah.
to negate
Unbind
spells. So
and
that's
stuff.
kind of nice if you
Great.
don't
Yeah.
have a wizard in your, especially if you're running a small army, because again the rules
Yeah.
support 750 points. That's quite
Hmm.
small,
Yeah.
and also the points have been rescaled
Hmm.
in for all units to make armies also smaller. So this feeds back in something we've said on Realm of Fire generally, like on the one episode, the first episode it was on, which is
Hmm.
GW, I think, realizing it's about smaller, faster games
Yeah. Absolutely.
that still feel warm.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah, it's
my friend
curious.
fielded an army that was it was Slanesh, and it was the Mask of Slanesh. It was the Infernal Enrapture, the lady with the harp made out of somebody's guts.
Mhm.
Because there's no Grimdark in Age of Sigmar, don't forget. And the twins, the sort of Master Blaster character with the large guy who's
Yeah,
walking, and the his sister on top, and 2 units of Demonettes, and that was 750 points, 23 models, and we had a brilliant game. It was a really back and forth. It lasted 5 turns. It wasn't one of those games you play that's small and then it's over by turn 3. It bounced back and forth. The command point gives survivability. You can rally units now. You can heal up your characters. So at 750 points, it felt like a battle, you know? And I say this on Realm of Fire as well, but honestly, I can see myself sticking at 750 for AOS 3 and having lots of
That's
little armies,
interesting.
you know? Because I do think after all, I think it has got a rules bloat to it. I'm not going to lie, it really does. When you've got I imagine a 2,000 point army is going to send you a little bit off the rails occasionally. But 750 points, it feels like, and I mean this in the best way, it feels like third edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Like you're
Interesting.
down to a couple of characters, couple of units, couple of fun things, and everything's got their role to play. Because if you've got a monster, as you mentioned, they've got abilities. They can start smashing down terrain now. So if you're fighting the Sylvaneth and they're popping up their forests everywhere, you could send in your giant to just uproot the trees and throw them around the place. It's very. It almost feels it's got a baked-in narrative now to each of the games.
Yeah. So ultimately, under the hood, most of the rules are still the same, aren't they? With the turn sequence and everything else, it's really these command abilities and the monster abilities, and they've defined a few more things as well, haven't they? Because we've got wizards, we have priests.
Yes.
So they dispel, unbind spells in a slightly different manner, and obviously they have basically prayers, which kind of like spells, but kind of not. We now have totems.
Yeah.
So that's like the Avatar of Cain is a totem. Is it Avatar of Cain? Do they call it Avatar of Cain? Yeah.
The one that steps off the cauldron of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's kind of cool because I mean for me I've got like 3 armies that are ridiculous. Well, 2 of a ridiculous size. They're like definitely 2,000 points.
Right.
And I've got my Witch Elf army, which is a solid 1,000. But like all of them. And also with Warcry, I've got 1, 2, 3 cult warbands.
Right.
The Furies, the Raptorics, some spawns that I still need to paint, and a few chaos chaosy big boys. What is it? The Nurgle Lord of Plagues, I think, or whatever he's called.
Right, yeah.
Fat boy with the axe, and the Slaughter Priest, and I've also got the Gaunt Summoner. So using either one of those as a hero, that's a 750 point army right there. So and that's actually now playable with Chaos actually since the Be'lakor book, I believe. So it's all really good fun actually. It basically Age of Sigmar is just nuts, and you can do a lot with it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. The scalability of it is great. But yeah,
I've not done any gaming like that. I've only just had my second vaccination, and I'm waiting. I'm being cautious until I can do some in-person gaming. Role play wise, we are doing when this is going out in a week's time will be the final session of our streamed Iron Kingdoms RPG. So that's the second edition of that. So that's been good fun because obviously that's based on a war game. That's been really good. I mean, to get reacquainted with Iron Kingdoms because it's a great setting, and again, it's like I've got reacquainted with the war game as well for that, and I've got some battle groups, and again, it's that idea of I can just put that on the table and play that, and it's a half-hour game. Like you don't need to precision measure like they do with those tournament players for War Machine and Hordes. That's just not my stuff. And 2D, who wants template terrain? 2D terrain? Come on, nauseating.
You've got that. Go play Advanced Squad Leader. I'm not putting Advanced Squad Leader down there, but there's better games. If you're not interested in the spectacle, there are better games out there.
Exactly. I mean, if you may as well play like I don't know, if you want 2D terrain and stuff, you may as well just start playing like Warhammer Underworlds and stuff like that, which is grid based. Anyway, we're gonna get into some gaming news.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. Do you know your D8s from your D12s? Do you know your modifiers from your bonuses? Do you know your destiny points from your story points? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Either way, you should check out What Am I Rolling, a twice-monthly RPG one-shot podcast. Catch up on previous episodes on the What Am I Rolling website, that's www.wairpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, adventurers need not apply.
So, okay. So, obviously, related to this is there are tons of new intro boxes for Age of Sigmar, which is great. I'm thinking I might grab one just because it gives me 5 of those new Stormcast with the spears because they're kick-ass looking.
Yeah.
And just so I can paint some Cruel Boys, the new sneaky orcs, the cunning orcs in Age of Sigmar. And we'll talk a bit more about them when we get into the main segment because they bring a lot of flavor to the world in a way that I don't think the Uruk range so far had. What else we got? We said there's new rule book. There's the General's Handbook. The General's Handbook is freaking great, and it has all the points in there and the army roster type thingy. Obviously, there's going to be new tomes for Cruel Boys or for Oryx and Stormcast, which is good. And there's more terrain, new terrain, which looks amazing.
Yes, it does. Really beautiful stuff. Have they hinted the next book? They've said Chaos, haven't they? But I think that's as far as we know.
I'm not too certain. I think, possibly Chaos would make sense.
Yeah, and I think people are thinking maybe Nurgle because technically they never got a second edition Battle Tome. So we'll see, though. That is pure conjecture. So take that with as much salt as you can eat.
So that's great. And then, obviously, off the back of all of that, and related to the fact we're talking about the Age of Beasts, we've got new dragons.
Yeah.
They are pretty amazing.
Where did they come from?
I think.
Where did they come from? That wasn't a thing. Everything. There's always the undercurrent of even when you're not quite sure what it is. The Kragnos stuff was like, oh, something's coming. I swear these dragons have just literally dropped out the sky.
So basically, you've got a kit that makes two versions.
Yeah.
And they're huge, like in size. I'm not too certain what base size they're on, but they look big.
They look big. Look very big. I wonder if they are Kragnos base sized.
Yeah. And the things that come to mind with it is I like these dragons more than the Star Drakes. The Star Drakes are too chunky. I'm never buying one of those. I'd sooner buy the Tauralion for the Stormcast than a Star Drake.
The Star Drake are very masters of the universe, I think.
Yeah.
They're just. I like the concept, execution less so. They're a little bit toy-like.
Yeah. And the other cool things off the back of the dragons that made me start thinking, because obviously we've heard a lot about the old world recently and a bit more about it is square bases, it is 28mm, it is the best of all Warhammer versions out there, so we'll see what that means in practice. And we've learned a bit more about the world, and we've got quite a lot of it's looking like a lot of the human world. So basically the old world is to Warhammer as Horus Heresy is to 40k, because you're going to have the Age of 3 Emperors. But these new dragons, do you know what it made me think of? Dark Elves on dragons, because you could you could do a fantastic version of Malekith on one of these dragons.
Ooh, that would be good. You could even have both kits and have Malekith and his mum, whatever she's called, Marathi. A pair of them.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I think I'm sure we will see these kits turn up in armies for the old world. Speaking of which, we said old world, we've already just said exactly what they're doing. It's classic Warhammer.
It is.
My suspicion.
Go on, yeah.
Go on then.
Well, I was going to say.
I'll go with my suspicion.
Yeah.
But you're going to go first.
Okay, so I am, I think, got a bit of a reputation as a bit of a shill for Games Workshop recently, because I'm quite positive about their production output. The old world is one of their products I have literally no interest in. I couldn't care less, and I feel bad saying it, but I just have no. I don't care. I don't. There's nothing that
I'm
will come out in that you can't already do in Age of Sigmar now.
I am in the same camp. I'm
Okay.
definitely in the same camp. I can see that they can very quickly get people into playing for it because we have Empire Range still sold today.
Yeah.
And so you literally can go, well, I want to play Old World. You'd be like, just collect an Empire army, pick which part of the Empire you are, play against everyone else. They've got Empire armies. Who cares? They're, a different faction. So, done, dusted. The only thing I would say is if I was to collect an Empire army for that region, I would mostly paint it up so it was part of. Is it No, it's not Ostermark. Which one was it? Which is the province where Mordheim's based?
Ooh, that's a deep dive. You continue, and I will do some behind the scenes.
I can't remember its name.
Yeah.
But basically, that's kind of what I would do. Is like an army that has that kind of feel like their original capital is gone, so they're a bit dishevelled.
Right.
That's all I'd really want to do. And again, I'm hoping, they'll be thinking of like, no one's got time to want to paint like really big units ranked up. Like they're gonna have to think about the play style to get people into it quick.
Yeah, very much so.
So
it is
we'll see what they do with that.
Ostermark.
It is Ostermark. So we'll see what they do. Obviously the aim is that everyone's previous armies are usable for it. So the guy that burnt his Dark Elf army, haha, but
Brilliant.
but I mean that's good. I mean if you wanted that, and the fact is you're in a position to do it, so good.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, if I was to play something old world, what I would do is pick up the relevant books for Warcry and just field Cities of Sigmar versus Skaven, for example, for Mordheim, and you've got it. You can play that. It's done. It's covered already.
Yeah, you could do that. That would be really good. Or you can just play Mordheim. I think Mordheim would be just as fun. There's plenty of good terrain that would work for that now. And actually, in this day and age, with all the MDF laser cuts, it's a brilliant time for that type of stuff. It'll be interesting to see what they do. And Sculpt will still definitely 2 years out from release, I would say, at most,
Long time.
or at least anyway. Other things, Kill Team. Oh my god, it's looking like it's the best of all worlds of trying to take. Mechanically, I'm seeing things like you don't have to care about range except for pistols. That's very much like the Batman miniatures game. Action points. That's very much kind of Necromunda Warcry play style. The measurement of ranges, people get pissy about it's a dot for a 2-inch, or it's a triangle for representing 3 inches, and it's a pentagon for representing 4 inches, etc., etc. And I've got I thought about this, right?
I'm listening.
If you only give dots, so if your movement is put as 2 dot, or if your movement is put as 2 triangle, what happens? Well, what's really easy to do is if you have to rescale, if you have to go, we need to rebalance some stuff, like things aren't moving as fast as we thought, or the range is a bit out on these pistols, and all the pistols have been balanced using the mathematics, right? There's some Excel sheet with the maths on it.
Yeah.
You don't have to change that number on a card. I know it's not actually as ideal because, like, Warcry, the cards that you get for your Warcry characters, for your models, the brilliance of those is there's no English, there's no language on them at all. There's just numbers and symbols. So they're actually, you can localize them to any region. So I think there's something going on there where they're thinking like, does this give us some scope to do stuff in future? I don't know. That's the game designer in me thinking.
Sure, I don't see why people are so het up about this. People are like, "Oh, it makes it for children," and I demand that my game about fungus orcs versus space clowns is not for children. And it's like, if you got an issue with that, don't worry. Really, don't worry about it. Just change it to inches. If that makes you feel better, just change it to inches. It will take you 2 seconds. I like it. I'm a big fan of iconography. I think Fantasy Flight Games have shown that iconography you can do everything with normal numbers and dice, but there is something. I do think it does tap to, maybe it is a childish thing, but in a good way. It taps to that. Cool, I understand that. Immediately, you're just like, cool, I get that. When you're playing something like the Star Wars FFG games, you roll all the dice and all the symbols come up, and you're like, okay, it's a success with a bit of advantage. You read it immediately, and I think a move towards symbols is good. You look at Blackstone Fortress, and that's all symbols. I shoot with a square, I dodge with a triangle. Works brilliantly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's looking cool. There's going to be new orcs. There's the commandos. There's new orcs anyway out. That's basic orc boys look fantastic. There's the new beast orc. What are they called? Beast snaggers.
Yeah.
Kill Team's got new orc terrain. So if you're into Gorka Morka, it's great. If you still play Speed Freaks, it's great for that. If you play 40k, it's going to be amazing for that. I'm actually going to get like the core book for it because I've got I've got Genes of the Cult, I've got Necromunda gangs that can easily be used as like a tech com group for a guard or something like that. I've got Plague Marines and Shamblers for Poxwalkers for a squad. So it's all it's easy. I've got stuff.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a Plague Marine squad is 3 miniatures, it said in the preview.
And some Shamblers, I think, Poxwalkers, I think.
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty fun.
Yeah. Nice.
Mostly they're going to do. Hopefully, if they've got rules for Traitor Guard, then I'm sorted. And yeah. Okay, so roleplay wise, Redacted Records is on the horizon. This is a part one of a series of things that will be then, I believe, will be in a printed book. So this is new rules, new stuff for the game. This first part, I believe, is focusing on space hulks of all different types that loiter around in the sector of the Gilead system. So that's more roleplay stuff. There's going to be weapons, more classes, stuff like that. So that's always good for 40k. Horned-Rat and the Horned-Rat Companion have been out for a bit. There's more stuff on the horizon for Warhammer, but Horned-Rat's important to me because I wrote on it, so that was fun. Play it. It's an insane fourth part that replaces something rotten in Kislev. Seraphon for Age of Sigmar are out as a PDF. They're playable lizardmen.
Yeah,
which is
it's a
nuts.
really good little book, that little PDF release, because it's not only that, it's also a lot of hooks and a lot of sort of expanded expanded lore for Seraphon in general. So if you are listening to this on the miniatures side and you happen to collect Seraphon or want to know what's going on with them, that is worth picking up as a background text. You can ignore the couple of pages of rules, and it's just a nice little source book, really.
Interesting. And then the other thing out is Storm and Steel, which I really need to grab. So this is basically rules for equipment, flying vehicles like the Caradron sky-ships, and all other paraphernalia, really, isn't it?
It's got like crafting and sort of making your own equipment, and it's one of those player source books where you're really diving deep. It's very much, I think, for the players, this one. It's the only one I haven't picked up yet. I've got a bit of a backlog of Soulbound stuff I'm waiting to arrive. So I thought I will hold off on this one, but it's very much a player options book, more for the Fire Slayers, more for the Caradron. More options, more fun. That's role-playing.
So that's the gaming news. There's more than likely more stuff that will come out by the time this drops. But there's lots of good stuff on the horizon for roleplay in the Warhammer worlds. So now we're going to move on to the main segment, which is the rise of the beast. Okay, so Age of Sigmar 3rd edition is really, as we said, focused around beasts. There are new abilities in the wargame for beasts. Beasts feature a lot. We have Kragnos, this god that escaped the Beast Grave, who has found his entire race in the realm of Gur are like long gone and dead. He's now huge and powerful and is looking for revenge or
Yeah.
something.
A release, I think.
Obviously, there's lots of things that led up to his release. That's this kind of the Broken Realms, which kind of, I guess, are the cracks in reality that allow such a entity to escape. So we've had Bellacor's Chaos Storm in over the realms that prevents the reforging process to happen when a Stormcast dies. We've had the Necroquake end. We've had the Necroquake end. It's over.
It's done.
Finally.
It's done. Yeah. Secondary
Teclis bitch slapped Nagash back to the Black Pyramid. He really did. I mean, it's not been good for Teclis as well, but
yeah.
I think like some spirit thing got like killed, didn't it? The spirit of the moon or something got not killed, but laid low.
Yes, it wasn't perfect, and Teclis really took it out on Nagash. But Nagash really overextended himself, which makes sense. The whole of second edition really was about Nagash and his tendrils across the realms, which led to he attacked the Varanspire. That's how high his hubris got. He went into the realm of chaos. So I think it was
good for him. I say good for him.
I say there's good people on both sides with death and chaos, but he got so high that Teclis just was like, right, no, that's enough now, and he'll be back. Of course, he'll be back. He's Nagash. How many times has he been destroyed? But for now, death is laid low for a while.
Yep. Then Marathi, as we know, she's a god. She absorbed tons of souls out of Slaanesh, the elven souls. She absorbed souls of elven kings of old from the world that was. I believe one of those souls was actually even that of like one of her previous lovers or an elven king or something like that, and that's why her ritual didn't go quite as planned. Why she's
was a
twin,
little bit, wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got Marathi Kane, so she's now fully absorbed the last embers of Kane, and that's kind of weird for her cult because obviously her cult thought Kane was still about, and she's been lying. So she's got a reckoning to come with even her own people in some places. Obviously, spawned from Slaanesh's belly was the what was it called? The
newborn.
Something, the newborn, and that became those and it became those two demon princes, didn't it? Did it split into those demon princes, or was it born from them?
I think it birthed them, but I don't think that's all that's going to birth from it. I think it's a kind of gelatinous goo that's going to be producing things for a while yet.
So that's fun. Obviously Anvilgard fell, which is awesome. I really love Anvilgard as a location.
Technically Anvilgard stands, actually, if you
it depends how you read it.
But yes, that's great.
So,
that's a really good story beat.
And then obviously I think Lariel has done some stuff, so like life is the realm of Gyron and life is ebbing once more. So we've kind of got this whole new flux of life energy and beast energy on the rise. And that really sets the world on a new axis, as it were, because there are some new factions we've not seen. So we've got the Cruel Boys who are coming out of the swamps, and they're Uruks that are kind of slim, kind of sneaky, kind of not bulky. Very much tied to life and using nature as well, and beasties. And oh my god, we didn't say like that new bloody vulture is straight out of Clash of the Titans.
Yes, it's like Clash of the Titans meets Dark Crystal. Like it's like just this absolute. Just look it up if you listen to this podcast. Just look at Gone to the Warcom site and have a look, because that I guarantee will be a Golden Demon winning like entry.
Yeah, right.
Year. Like that is definitely going to be something that someone does something magical with.
And then we've also got new Stormcast, who are these another forging which have, let's say, their armor plating is more refined. They're bigger again. when they die, the exploding lightning and therefore pierce back through the Chaos Storm so they can be reforged. When they teleport into battle, there's even more explosive lightning. So the thing that I would say stylistically is I feel Games Workshop is again doubling down on kind of that kind of epic Greco-Roman kind of themes.
Yes, I'd agree wholeheartedly on that. I think with the Stormcast, do you know what? I've been doing a little bit of comparison because this is what I do with my life these days. I don't think they are that much bigger. I think they're stood taller, and I do think that makes quite a
Yeah,
difference.
that's what I mean. Yeah,
Right, yeah. The armor is way more upright, isn't it? In a way, it's way more streamlined, so it gives them that height that they do. I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, they've Primaris them," and they haven't. You know, the difference between a Primaris Marine and a Tactical Marine is massive. The difference between a Liberator from First Edition and one of the new boys is they've got better posture, basically, and.
yeah.
Yeah, I think they're great, and I love the touches that because grungy or grungy, I never know how to say it. So I'm gonna say grungy.
Grugny. It's mostly rolled in together. Grugny. Yeah.
Oh, okay, that dwarven lad, because he's helping. I love the touches that you get on the armor, the badges, the beard, his icon, and that's just that again. It's a story beat that's just put in there. Sigmar's fought back against chaos. It's not gone 100%. So now he's getting the band back together, and we're seeing that in the miniatures. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some like Alariel based Stormcast effectively, with her touches.
Oh, that would
kind
be
of thing.
cool.
Yeah, I just wonder if each of the gods of order will be able to give their touch and create a sort of a unified force, if that makes sense.
Oh, Malarian Stormcast. That would be hot.
Imagine, like Shadow Ranger kind of things. Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Why
I
not?
know what I would do design-wise for that.
Yeah.
Do you know the Gold Smoke Knight from Kingdom Death?
I don't. No, I don't.
Well, it's basically it's basically this huge monster relative to the humans in the game, who is a suit of armor, but he has smoke pouring out of the gaps in his armor, and that would really be a good way of representing a reforging of elves from the realm of Ulgu.
Oh yes, I've just literally Googled it, and yes, agreed. That would be a perfect representation. Yeah.
That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, right? I really like Stormcast. I have an army of Stormcast, and what sold me on Stormcast was Stormcast in second edition because the what are they called? What type of Stormcast are they in?
Oh, Sacrosanct. Sacrosanct.
Sacrosanct.
Yeah.
Conclave. Sorry, chamber.
Yeah. I can't remember. Some like magic ones.
And it was just the fact they had robes as well on their armor. It just gave them a bit more of that kind of gave them a bit more of a dynamic feel to them than the kind of chunky boys with the hammers in first edition.
Yeah, the hammers were a problem when it became a hammer carrying a hammer with a hammer cloak. Like it really got very to the point of this. Like even from the first releases, Liberators looked cooler with swords. Hammers are fine, but they can look a bit dumb. I love Stormcast. I'm a big proponent of Stormcast, and I've said I really like them because they are living this eternal hell, basically, of war, death, reforging, war, death, reforging. It'd be terrible. It would be absolutely terrible to be a
Storm. It is terrible.
It's just like, great. I get to remember every single one of my deaths. I forget everything I knew about myself and lose my humanity. And then I get to be reforged and fight some disgusting beast in the swamps. Great. This is what I wanted. That's my reward for fighting chaos.
Because we got these new Stormcasts, I think we could potentially have like a schism where some of the older forgings go rogue. And you get a sense of that anyway, because sometimes certain Stormcast forces get a little bit too zealous with the word of Sigmar and start killing a lot of humans.
Is it Celestial Vindicators who would be? Is it them that would be very much at home in 40k? They're very. You
Which one?
see a
Which
village.
one?
They're in white armor.
I've.
I think that's the
Oh,
sort
yeah,
of
they
thing.
are. It is them. Yeah, I've got.
Yeah.
My army is Celestial Warbringers, the ones
Well,
that
they're
do
the
signs
purple
and
ones.
portents,
They're
the
great.
red
They're
ones,
great.
red and
Yeah.
white.
Red. Sorry. Yeah.
Um, they're fun. Anyway, yeah. So Stormcast,
Yeah.
new Stormcast, it's cool. And there's also big boys with big hammers, big shields.
Yeah.
There's undoubtedly going to be some more things. There's more characters. Obviously,
Yeah.
the main point we should always make is that Stormcast suck when painted gold. I still stand by Stormcast look naff like that.
Yeah. True.
Anyway,
True. Yeah.
so that's
Good
kind of
point.
like the cliff notes of how we've got to where we are.
Yes.
And we're gonna really want to ask what we want to get into is what can we do from this edition? What does this edition inform us about role playing? And I think the thing you brought out in the notes, Rob, that you brought up, that's I think the big thing is we're really learning more about how these crusades work and how these cities of Sigmar, which are really the place where your player characters are going to spend a vast amount of their time, how those come about. Because we've now got images that show insane shit happening.
Yes. Very much so.
So explain what a Dawnbringer crusade is.
Sure. So a Dawnbringer crusade is when basically it's decided that the realm of Sigmar or the holdings of Sigmar need to increase. A Dawnbringer crusade will be called at one of the major free cities. There will be basically an orgy of religious ecstasy as people are whipped into a crusade frenzy. It's by the very word crusade, you get a sense of it, but also in a way it also has the trappings of a like classic Islamic jihad as well. That you're going out to take this land for the god. You're not going to punish an enemy. You're going to take some land. And it's really interesting because these are formed usually around a core of Stormcast that will lead. They're going to lead the people out. Then you've got just swaves of volunteers. And volunteers I'm using very much in the workplace term. That some people will be volunteers. A lot of other people are just going to go because it's the best thing to do. Because if you join one of these crusades, you are forgiven of any previous sins and crimes. This is all brought up in the Dominion book by Darius Hinks. You are forgiven of a crime, or so it's a way to disappear, basically. So if you're having a hell of a time in whatever free city you live in, you join one of these crusades, you are given a tiny token, which is believed to be a part of the old world, a token of Malleus, whether it is or not, we'll find out. And from that moment on, you are a member of the crusade, and your sins are forgiven. And off you go. And you're going to march out into the wilderness with free guild soldiers, Dwarden cogsmiths, maybe some elves if they get off their asses and help, and some Stormcast Eternal, and they're going to find a patch of land and produce a new city. They're going to create a settlement, a rough sort of settlement, and then from there, hopefully, a city will grow. However, most of them just get eaten the moment they step out of the walls, particularly in the realm of Gur, which is the focus currently. It's not a good place to go out or wandering because you will literally get eaten by the ground. But that's their idea. They are the most extreme medieval crusade and jihad mixed with a sort of Western, and I mean Old West style, off to get some land. So there is there's an element to them I do and don't like, because they are the forces of order. But what I like about Age of Sigmar is you don't have forces of good and evil. You've got order, but that doesn't mean good. But they are the focus. But what they're going out to do is something that has obviously sort of parallels in the real world of very negative things. And your lines are your mileage will vary on this. You can either just go, do you know what? It is about a god king going out to fight a god of death with a big hat. So I'm fine with this. It may rankle, it may smack of colonialism and stuff, but it is up to you. And I'm not going to pass judgment on what you decide on that. It is an excellent vehicle for role playing because it's a massive exploration quest. That is exactly what it is. It is going out. They might have an idea of where they want to go, and often these crusades are based around a saint, usually a saint from the free city, and they will say, I have had a vision from Sigmar, and Sigmar says we need to go 100 leagues west, and they'll go there and they'll find a hill, and they'll be like, well, that's obviously the hill they meant, so let's build here. But for role playing, if you're playing something there, you're attached to one of these Dawnbringer Crusades. You go ahead and have a look, and you've got a hex crawl right there. You can play a hex crawl game of let's find out what's ahead of us, and then if we get to the end, if we are one in 20 crusades that make it, you've almost got a West Marches style there. You've got your new location that you can build and you can add to, and you can operate from out of that. So really, it gives you a really good campaign basis if you really want to play that.
Soulbound being like the vanguard of this, and as you say, protecting the saint, or maybe preventing the crusade being perverted by some cultists that are in their midst. There's really interesting information about how these crusades occur. You've got these floating, literally floating bits of earth, of rock, upon which prefabricated buildings are hauled upon. So everything floats into position or is on the back of even more gigantic beasts. I really like that idea that everything's prefabricated. They get somewhere and they just slap it down there and build as quickly as they possible around it.
That's what.
So they're the IKEA. So Dawnbringer Crusades are the IKEA of the Warhammer worlds, with their prefabricated homes that you can buy. Only in Sweden, though, unfortunately.
Yeah. And there's always a pilgrim left over at the end. You're always like, oh, what do I do with this one now?
Yeah, there's always. There's some really cool stuff though. Like they'll bring a rock that's been taken from Gyron that's able to create fresh water. They'll pick somewhere which is the center of magical energy, like it has a realm gate or an ancient shrine. So these are often going to be where ancient tombs and old cities from the Age of Myth exist. That's really cool. So it's about reclaiming old lands, but also, I guess, dealing with the human tribes that have sprung up since the Age of Myth.
Absolutely,
those human tribes obviously could also be chaos tribes, because they're going to be a bit crazy, or they're going to feel like the people that are moving in are not really natives, even though they should be natives, because they're the refugees that fled to Azure, the realm of heaven, and then came back. So there might be some political issues there,
and that is explored in the Dominion book by Darius Hinks. Actually, there is a bit of a conflict between the Azorites and the Gurians, isn't there?
Yeah, and that happens a lot. Like it happens in every city of Sigmar. There's that description exactly comes up in stuff to do with Anvilgard or Greywater or places like that. So yeah, I really like the idea that of these huge buildings being brought into position. Again, that means a character that it makes endeavors really interesting in the role play game, because then your downtime is maybe you go, oh, my endeavor is to ensure that the lodestones or the megaliths are magically attuned to defend the settlement.
I hadn't thought of that. That would be such a good little source book, like a settlement life endeavors kind of thing. Like if you're a ranger going out to trap some of the local wildlife or clearing the lands around kind of thing. That's a really good shout.
And then there's also a little bit in about the Dawnbringer Crusades about how they'll use the relevant material in the realm to give its settlement its defenses, and that will also color it. So obviously in Gyron there's a lot of ossified bones of ancient monsters, so dinosaurs, etc., are going to feature heavily in the defenses. So the palisades are made of actual giant bones. That would be kind of cool. These cities start off as a few prefab buildings that look like cathedrals and so forth, and nexus siphons and
Yes.
and these spiritual barriers by these statues of Sigmar and so forth. But then as you go on, they're going to make lean-tos and simple buildings, and eventually it'll evolve. And speaking of evolutions of cities, there's a brilliant spread that kind of shows all these elements of a small settlement in the book.
The Fundian freehold.
Yeah, and then we've got, obviously, and I think this is most important, the maps in this book are
incredible.
tons more detail than we've ever seen. Like Akshai, I think we know like the back of our hand now, but like we've now got like Chamon and Ulgul, and we've got a segment of Haish and more about Shaish detailed, and that also comes with like new descriptions of cities. We've got cities like, what have I listed? Cities that are interesting. We've got let me find my list of cities that are interesting. We've got Lethis in Shai. We've got Vindikarum in Chamon, which has this huge shard of Sigmarite, or the called the Spear of Malleus. That's off its coast.
That's Excelsis.
That's Excelsis. Sorry. Okay.
We'll come back to, because Excelsis.
Vindicarum's a different one.
Yeah, Excelsis is an RPG setting, literally baked to perfection. So we'll come back to that in a second.
Yeah. We've got a bit more on like Hammerhall, and in both Akshai and Gyron, we learn. And this is the thing, when a setting is developed enough that you know how people live in that world, because we've got details like, in Gyron, they live on grubs and bugs.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so most of what they're eating there is actual like various strange gribbly worms, and they'll have woks filled with spiced sautéed like crickets and stuff like that. And it's once you get to that point, you understand like what people eat in the realms and how they subsist from day to day. From an RPG point of view, you kind of get the setting more.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it was a joke, wasn't it, when it first started, and no one could get to the setting, and it was like, what do the farmers do? And then you got people were mocking up battle-to farmers and stuff. But you do need something to latch onto. There needs to be a currency. There needs to be a trade. These basic things that humans have done since Sumerian times. You need that. So when it is explained, you're like, oh yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. As you said earlier, the idea they lift these rocks from Gyran to produce water, that makes all the sense in the world. That's like, yeah, of course. So that's what they can sell from the realm of life, all these things. Same as if you're traveling in snowy wastes, I bet a bit of realm stone from Akshi, a bit of firestone, is going to be worth its weight,
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it answers everything. And I really, as you say, once you're down to that level of, look, there's a reason why Game of Thrones got very popular. There's a reason why Jack Vance writing got very popular, because they went down to such a level where it's talking about the food and what they're drinking and eating. You are suddenly there. You get that visceral, okay, if I have to live on grubs and bugs, okay, you immediately start thinking, would it be like jungle life? You know what I mean? You start relating that way. And that's where it's hit now, because it's only 6 years old. Age of Sigmar is only 6 years old. Look where Warhammer was, Fantasy Battle, in 6 years. It was not as detailed as this.
God, no.
Nowhere
I mean, where it is now is on a par with. It's definitely on a par with Iron Kingdoms for detail.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely on a par with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going to finish on my things about foods that I think are really interesting. Right. I love how in the realm of Gur, sea salt is a commodity to sell there. So you can come from Anvilgard with your crazy salt that you've mostly sea salt that you've taken from the coast as business there. Go through a realm gate and another one. Get to Gur. I think there's a realm gate to Gur in Anvilgard. I can't remember. But you take it with you, because in Gur, there's just so much meat. Like there's so many animals that meat is like their their primary food
Yes,
staple. But the
very
problem
much so.
is curing it. So they're curing huge chunks of meat off like massive like bison and mammoths and other strange creatures. And it's now we've got that, we can understand who trades with who and what. So like, you know, the realm of Chamon, there's settlements there where they can't eat the plant life because it's like so fused with like heavy metals that are like
Yes.
that cause mutations.
Mm.
So they're going to trade all their wonderful like potions and chemicals and weapons to travelers from Gur for meat and to Gyron for water,
Yeah.
you know,
Crops
aqua
yeah.
Garanis, or and vice versa. They're you know they're going to get meats and stuff, and Gyron they're going to get metal because you know
Yeah.
if you haven't got metal, the only thing you're really going to make weapons out of is again big fucking bones. So that's the thing now. I think we've actually got a sense of economy between all the cities of Sigmar now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Each of them makes sense, makes a reason for them to be in a place rather than just let's build a city here. It's now no this no. And of course the realm gates will always provide that anyway. It's a logistical they will put down for logistical reasons. The Realm Gate Wars was a war of logistics because you effectively had the two forces were Sigmar, who can reforge his soldiers, and Chaos, who never really die. So it was never going to be about body count. It could never be about body count. It was always about logistics and taking places. And that's why the cities appeared. And now they've appeared, they're having this second wave of now this is what they're there for.
So, of all these cities,
Yes.
I mean, the ones which you know that we've learned a little bit. We know Hammerhall really well. We know
Yes.
all the cities of Akshai. We know incredibly well,
Yes.
thanks to the roleplay game books as well.
Mhm.
And there's new ones like Brightspear, which was created
Yes.
through the roleplay game.
Yes.
I think the ones which begin to now pop out even more are things like Excelsis, because it's the main focus of a lot of plot, I believe, for this edition.
Yeah.
Potentially Vindicarum will be Zinch based because of that. The whole all to do with the Bellacor's plans, you know.
Yes. What he's doing.
And then I would say the other one which I really like is I'm not really a massive fan of Lethis actually. I'm more of a fan of Glimsforge. But I'm really interested about Misthaven.
Yes.
But let's talk about Excelsis because we don't want to go on too long. So let's talk about why Excelsis is freaking awesome.
I knew you'd love Misthaven, by the way. I was just reading the column, and there are literally adventure seeds on the page about it. I'm just like, want to run that. But okay, let's concentrate on Excelsis. So Excelsis is probably the primary city of Sigmar in the realm of beasts in Gur. It has recently had a bit of a bad time. It was the focus of Broken Realms Kragnos, where once Kragnos woke up, he was all like, whoa. Like he could see Excelsis and was like, "What the hell is this?" When I was around, you know, these people were scrounging around in the fields. They weren't building cities. So he led a unified destruction horde to Excelsis and put it to siege. But it's actually really the events just before that are really interesting and what make a really good RPG setting, I think, because you have this whole there's a lot going on politically. There is a large religious sect rising who have this incredibly anti-elf sentiment to them. They're very much like it's a very bigoted religion. It's very these elves aren't doing anything, and actually there's so much. So as you mentioned earlier, there is a shard in the center of the city, which is the sort of almost a source of both an economy. It's called the Spear of Malice, and it's Sigmarite, which is a metal, but this gives prophecies and visions, and so it's doubly its value. Not only is it a raw material, it is also a mystical material, and there's sort of the in a way being surrounded by this makes the people a little bit kind of paranoid about other wizards, other magicians. And because elves have a very strong link to magic, especially Teclis, for example, there becomes this real sentiment of, well, the elves are ruining everything kind of thing. And as sectarian violence breaks out, elves are accosted on the street and lynched in cases. Anyone who deals with them are, similarly accosted. Then people who trade in magical items, of which, it's the mortal realms, the place is flooded with them. They're suddenly, hauled up in front of makeshift courts, or just put into gibbets, or just put in the stocks, or just murdered, straight up murdered. And it becomes this kind of really horrible place to be unless you're on the cult side. And even then, it's probably not great because you're still having to shave your head and whip yourself with chains. It has very sort of echoes of end timesy Warhammer. I think these prophecies are becoming more and more of, hey, this force is coming to smash this city. And rather than go, okay, we should probably unify and defend it then, they're going, well, it's the elves' fault that this prophecy is happening, so let's get rid of the elves. So it really weakens the city to the point where Excelsis is on the coast, and it's the realm of beasts, so there are disgustingly huge sea creatures in the waters. And the city is kept safe by Scourge privateers, who are the elves who sail. They have the black arcs, and they have been sort of guarding the sea flank of the city. As the siege goes on, there's a point where they just go because they're just like, do you know what? Actually, forget you. You've been lynching our friends, so they go. So Excelsis is a real. It kind of smacks of, for me when I read it, and this is quite probably a bit heavier than I think they expected. It felt very Last Days of Berlin in a way. You had these literal shaved head skinheads going round, impressing people to the front, giving them a spear and saying, go and stand on this wall and you're going to have to poke a gargan in the face. You had, persecution. And I should be clear, I'm not comparing the persecution of people in Nazi Berlin to a fantasy game at all. But it's that sort of mood, I think, is the way to put it. It was that feeling of, this is a city that's consuming itself when it's about to get wiped off the map, basically. So it's kind of a very grim and dark setting, and you could set a very interesting game before, when these cults are rising. During the siege, you could have a getting people out or getting people to safety, or what are those ogres doing? They look a bit suspicious. Maybe we should check them out. And maybe after, the remnants, what happens afterwards. So that's my pitch for why Excelsis should have its own source book, really, because I think there's so much you can do with it.
Interesting. Yeah, one of the things that stood out was the glimmerings, their currency. These pebbles made of polished sigmarite that are mined from the spear, and they are bartered as a currency, but their mystical energy can be used up for a small vision, as it were. And the fact that use them that way can become addictive. And that leads to the paranoia element. I think that's a really crazy form of currency in a city. But yeah, the idea of a constantly paranoid city is interesting. Is really interesting, and just the idea of this huge, this huge mountain, more than that, of Sigmarite just stuck in the bay. Which floating wizards towers are around as people are mining it for stuff. Yeah. It's just such a crazy thing to kind of comprehend.
It's so fantastical in a great way.
Like the thing, obviously, I just briefly looked over Misthaven, and basically Misthaven's Tortuga.
Yes.
It's solidly Tortuga. It's a city made of ships.
Yeah.
So it's not even like, it's a bit like Anvilgard, and then it's not.
Yeah, it's like Venice / Tortuga / yeah, absolutely. But what a city to run a game in. Oh.
Again, it's the realm of shadows, so skullduggery and intrigue is part and parcel of it. You can have a very heavy Scourge Privateer, Darkling Covens led story. Again, they're going to have a very complex relationship with Marathi and her temples. It's just open to a lot and lot of fun.
I mean,
And I think that's the thing.
Can I read out
The
two
thing we've now
scenes that I
got.
saw for
Yeah, go
Misthaven?
on.
Literally, these are the good guys. Don't forget. Rumours tell that the foggy canals of Misthaven are filled with slick-skinned, once humans that imbibed too much oil of glatch and were transformed into something terrible and endlessly hungry. That's a wonderful, like, murder mystery right there. And the second one is more mysterious still are the lantern men, those solemn, hooded figures who warn the populace of imminent danger by tolling their sonorous harbour bells when the mists roll in and the terrors concealed within them. Brilliant. Like, that's two atmospheric things there that you could run a campaign off that kind of stuff.
For sure. And I think that's the main thing with this edition, and I think that the strength of this book. This book doesn't feel like a War Games book.
No,
you know?
not at all.
This is Games Workshop finally going. We understand how the setting really works now. Like, we really have a feel for it. I mean, like, we've also got Settler's Gain, the Enlightened City, which is this kind of like crystal future punk mixed in with Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
And or it also, the artwork kind of looks a bit like, pre-Empire Coruscant. It's kind of got that like huge kind of those pavilions and so forth. And again, this is a city that's going to be filled with Lumineth, but obviously we know they're elves, so you can't trust them. So there's going to be something dark and dangerous happening beneath all of this.
Well, we know that.
Just...
Did you read the short fiction about the human that went to study in that city?
No, I've not read that bit yet. No.
It's just a short one. Can I spoil, or
do the spoilers? Yeah.
So he goes to Settler's Gain, and as a student, basically the magical arts, and it's told in a series of letters back to his lover, who's at a different city, and basically it's like a massive re-education camp. You go, and when you get to a certain point, the Lumineth take you off somewhere, and then you come back, and the Lumineth are your friends, and everything the Lumineth say and do is right. And it's like, really, it's a brainwash factory, basically, for the Lumineth to get more humans, sort of, to spread the good word of Teclis. It's very, very cult-like. And
obviously, when you've got that environment, and I can see from the artwork, and I can understand why the Cipher Lords from Warcry can easily masquerade in that kind of setting, because they're duplicitous bastards working in amongst duplicitous bastards. So what's the problem? I think to finish up then, I mean, we haven't said, I mean, the role-play take-homes, okay? I think the role-play take-homes we've got in here is that, A, we've got some gorgeous maps, so we can understand the world a bit better. B, every realm that's had a lot of detail now. I think all the realms now have one iconic city in this book to define how people live there.
And obviously, it's not. Is Azir. Azir is still the sort of the locked away realm, but there's a reason for that. I think we will discover more as the edition goes on.
Yeah. So there's tons of scope for places to go, things to do, travel between one city to another using realm gates. There's an opportunity where if you've got a mixed party of Soulbound, depending upon which city and realm you go to, your affiliation will likely get you in through certain doors where in other realms and cities it would be a hindrance. So there's that element. It's clear that every city described in here has some very interesting plot hooks that have got nothing to do with the war game, everything to do about living in the city, about how people survive there, what they eat, what they strive against to keep the city going. So that links into like endeavors that your characters can do. I think that's the most important element to this.
Yes.
And I think we just got a really, you get a strong idea of like the grandeur of the setting,
Yeah.
and really where, as Soulbound, you can be pinged across the realms trying to solve people's problems because you are the Suicide Squad of the Warhammer world, of the Mortal Realms. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going to pick one city, then I guess you're going to pick Excelsis
I'm
as
very good for
your
Excelsis.
location to run roleplay. Yeah.
Of the new ones, yeah.
Um,
I just need to clarify that I
the
have
new
a
ones, yeah.
huge soft spot for Brightspear. I love Brightspear as a city. So, but if I had to pick one from using the Warhammer Age of Sigmar core book as my source book, I would go for Excelsis.
Yeah, and I would say I would definitely pick Misthaven.
Yeah.
Excelsis was definitely a close second on that one. And yeah, I think that's all we can really say. I mean, it's an impressive addition.
Yeah.
I think comparatively to the 40k rulebook, I think it's got better info in it.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's way more interesting.
I think it's definitely way more interesting in some respects. And there's still more to come. Like, I mean, we've seen Teclis's Lumineth. We've still yet to witness whatever the hell Tyrion's up to. We've got Malarian's. We've got Malarian's deal. I mean, Tyrion is spoken of briefly in the book on I can't remember, on the Coming of Elves. I think it is. There's a section there. Yeah, and I think also we get certain sections, time periods are kind of like covered quite well, like Dark Omens and the Necroquake are covered.
Really cool. Yeah, you can play a historical game. You could play, hey, let's play Soulbound, but back in Malign Portents. You know, the Necroquake hasn't occurred yet, but we're going to Shaiish to see what's happening. You can play. The setting now has history, and you can jump into that history.
Yeah, and the other thing is because your Soulbound can be bound by any of the Gods of Order since the Champions of Order book. That also means these cities are like the likely home base for your Soulbound, depending upon who binds them. So like Misthaven would make sense if Marathi Soulbound you. God, is that can Marathi Soulbound? Soul binding? She must be able to.
The soul binding is an interesting one. It's still in the Champions of Order book. They've explained it a bit more. Yes, you can. I think any god can do it, but at the end of it, you still belong to Sigmar. Kind of. I think he has the first refusal. I think I don't think it needs a god to create a soulbound group. But I'm sure Marathi could, but I think basically Sigmar would override former loyalties because that has now been talked about, how there are daughters of Cain, as you mentioned very early on, who are part of the Soulbound, or maybe even not, and are like, whoa, hang on, you are a high priestess, you're not Cain, like to Marathi, you know, it'd be like if the Pope said, I'm Jesus now, you know, how many people would be like, well, hang on, no, so that's really interesting. And actually, before I forget, what else is coming in a couple of months? Champions of Death. We're talking about it from a Soulbound Order perspective. We're going to get to be the goodies soon. We get to play as the Flesh Eater Courts and the Disciples of Nagash.
And again, like they all have a different feel depending upon which realm they hail from. Yeah. So, I mean, it's already again, you know. The Deadwalkers, the zombie models that came out recently, are pretty much iconic of zombies from the realm of life. They've got like vines growing through them, but zombies will depend upon where they come from. I could imagine, that'd be really good. I mean, I don't think they'd be the most exciting models to sculpt to make them look like that, but like Deadwalkers from Akshai are just like charred bodies that are shambling around and
well, like my Flesh Eater
constantly falling from them
are the blister skin, who are the vampires that worship the sun, which is brilliant. Like, what a brilliant thing for vampires to worship.
What I want to know from to see if it comes up in the Champions of Death book, the really important thing is of course not all necromancers not all necromancers and not all people in the realm of Shaiish, of course, are fans of Nagash.
No, absolutely.
So I would like to see if the depowering of Nagash, I say depowering, but the
Yes.
bitch slap,
Yeah.
so he's not so
the banishment.
active. Does that mean potentially some vampires are freed of his will to a degree?
Yeah. Ooh.
Because
Hey.
then we're into Vampire
Yeah.
Hunter D kind of territory.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely. Or necromancers who are like.
we're into anti-hero territory with
Yeah.
a vampire and maybe potentially some night haunt type character
Mm.
who's dead, who's like, if I can do all the right things, does that cleanse my soul and I could get reforged?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
That'd be
brilliant.
really fun to
Yeah.
explore.
Because Nagash really holds the Night Haunt hostage. Really, he's the one
Yes, he
keeping them
does.
in this eternal torment, isn't he?
Well,
So yeah,
didn't Be'lakor like steal the bones of Lady Olinda?
yes, yeah, he took like. There's a lot.
So
There's so much going on. It's great. It's genuinely like I compare it to when L5R was in its real stride, and things were just happening, and you're kind of excited to be in it. There's so much stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Right. Well, that's basically it. I mean, that's kind of our gut feeling on things.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you want to make a Cities of Sigmar army from Gyron, you should find a way of getting some giant scarabs for your pistoliers to ride on now, because they're described shell riders of the 68th Veldguard ride on giant scarabs. Like, hold on a minute, Games Workshop doesn't even produce that. Like,
Yeah.
this is insane.
That's so cool.
There's a lot of fun things happening,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of scope for conversions, and ultimately a lot of scope for role play with various beasties and ideas. So to finish off, Rob, where can they find you and all of your interesting content?
I have got my own podcast, as mentioned earlier, the Realm of Fire podcast. We're on Spotify, we're on Podbean and Overcast. I don't do the technical side, so I don't really know. But we're wherever you can find Darker Days Radio and Darkhammer, you should be able to find us. We've got Instagram as well, realm_of_fire_podcast. We're there. Me and Brendan do that. And really, if you want to talk to me, either the Darker Days Radio Discord or the Full Metal RPG Discord under Jelly Rovers. That's me.
Yep. And so Realm of Fire is, I would say, more focused on the miniatures game side of the settings.
Yes, very.
But
we talk about the miniatures. We talk about the community as well, and that's what our next. We're about to hit our 10 episodes, and then the next sort of batch is going to be more about the community, the fandoms, the problems within said fandom. And,
well, if you've ever worked in a Games Workshop store, which I have,
yes,
yes.
Tales from the Front Line, I think would be the segment.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. Cool, excellent. And obviously, if people are interested in more about the worlds of Warhammer RPGs, and have some ideas or comment or critique of this episode and all of our previous stuff, then you can contact us either on Facebook, Dark Days Radio, Instagram and Twitter at Dark Days Radio. You can also come over to our Discord, and of course you can email us at darkdaysradio@gmail.com. But that is everything for this very quick slice of the roleplay side of Age of Sigmar 3E. So again, thank you, Rob, for taking time out for chatting with me about this, because you've read this and one of the novels, so that helps. Hopefully next time we'll be doing some, I want to say we're going to do some 40k. I need to figure out which in Darkhammer from a roleplay perspective. Oh fuck, I think I'm going to have to talk about Cast Gods. That's going to get icky. It was bad enough talking about Gene Stealers.
Why don't you talk about
Demonculaba and all that crap? Oh god. Oh yeah, actually yes. I mean Precipice is great, and obviously the one thing that we really haven't talked about, because it's still, we don't know when it's going to get produced again. Ulfenkhan in Curse City. Ulfenkhan's great.
Oh my god. Right.
Ulfenkhan is a solidly good roleplay setting.
Yeah. I am jazzed to play Soulbound at the moment now. I'm going to go get all my books out and put them on the floor.
I really want to play in an ongoing campaign at some point, because I've run some. I wouldn't mind running some more. I need to run Vampire which, yeah, that might be something coming up on the stream soon, is some vampire. Anyway, that's everything for now. So
Yes.
goodbye, suckers, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.